We love to celebrate our many election heroes around the state. We do have three wonderful uh, clerks and election officials joining us tonight. So you'll get to hear more about them and from them later in the session. But did definitely wanted to reflect that today is Election Hero Day, and we should all be giving our clerks a good shout out, give them props. They do a lot of work for us. And there's a lot of steps that go into making sure we have safe, secure, and accessible elections. So if you joined this webinar tonight to learn about the Canvas process, you are in the right place because we are going to get into the weeds tonight on the state statutes that guide the Canvas process. What does the Municipal Board of Canvas look like? And then what does the County Board of Canvas look like? So I'm going to keep letting people in as they come, but let us get started. A little bit about who we are just before we dive into the content. I know many of you are League members, but if you've never heard of the League of Women Voters before, we're so glad that you're joining us tonight for this session. We are a grassroots organization made up of people of all genders, all working to ensure that our democracy is defended and that we empower voters. We do this by advocating and informing voters at the grassroots level. There are 21 local leagues around the state, and I have a map up here. If you're not connected with your local league, I definitely would encourage you to. They are a great group of people who are really committed to making sure that our communities reflect the people who live in them and reflect the desires of we the people in each of those communities. So for our agenda tonight, we are going to do some level setting on, what is the Canvas and certification process. Then we're going to do a deep dive into the municipal Canvas process, and then a deep dive into the county Canvas process. We will have some time for Q&A. Please feel free to utilize the chat at any point during tonight's session to type in your questions. I will moderate the Q&A when we get to that point. And then just to make sure that everyone is able to hear our speakers, we do ask that everybody stays on mute. It just makes it easier and makes sure that we don't have any background noise jumping in while we're all trying to listen. And then we'll do a quick wrap up and close out and get you on with the rest of your evening. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time introducing our three presenters this evening. The first one is Mike Haas. He is the city attorney for the city of Madison and was the former administrator and staff counsel for the Wisconsin Elections Commission. Elena Hilby is also joining us from Sun Prairie. She is the clerk there and the former president of the Wisconsin Municipal Clerks Association. And then Lisa Tolfson is also joining us. She is the Rock County clerk. And special shout out, she is my county clerk. So super fun to see you on the call, to see everyone on the call. Thank you so much. All right, and I am going to stop sharing and pass the mic over to Mike.
Thanks, Eileen. I'm going to hopefully be able to execute sharing my screen here. Uh, is that working?
It's working.
Okay. Thanks.
And
I'm happy to be with you all
Mike,
tonight.
sorry, Mike, do you want to do the switch the displays view?
Um,
You just click that first one, it'll swap it over for you.
how's that?
Perfect. Okay, you're good to go.
Okay. Thanks. I'm always happy to be with League folks. Appreciate the invitation and to be here with actual clerks. I got to play a city clerk for about 6 months in the city of Madison, and recently we were able to hire an excellent city clerk to fill that position. So I'm happy to be back with one job with the city. So I have the easy job tonight. I'm going to just provide a quick overview of the Canvas process, starting at the local level. and all the way up to the state level. And with my experience, my brief experience as clerk in the spring election and a special election, I will just say that I'm glad I don't have to worry about all of the details that go into actually conducting the canvass and finalizing the numbers. So we do have some actual election heroes with us tonight. So I wanted to start with just a couple of general principles that I think of and purposes when I think of the canvass process. We, of course, want our election results to be accurate. We want to have election integrity. We want people to be confident in the results of the election. We want the process to be transparent. Um, Elections are a public process, and the canvass board meetings are an opportunity for members of the public to observe how the results are tabulated, the final results. And then we do want finality in our elections. We need to know who the winners and losers are. We need to um, give the candidates an opportunity to know the results, and then if they qualify for a recount petition and choose to file a recount, they can do that based on the results of the canvass. Okay, so we're going to start with the municipal canvass, section 7.3, 7.53 of the statutes governs both municipal canvass boards and school district canvass boards. And so we have two types of canvass boards for municipalities. One is in municipalities that have only one polling place. And in those cases, the election inspectors at that polling place serve as the municipal board of canvass, and they actually canvass the results on election night. In many municipalities, of course, we have more than one polling place, and the municipal board of canvassers is formed by, it consists of the municipal clerk and two electors of the municipality who are appointed by the clerk. And the municipal canvass then must begin by the following Monday at 9 a.m. We also have in some municipalities a board of absentee ballot canvassers, and these are in what we call central count communities, where all absentee ballots are canvassed in one location instead of at the polling place. So again, this board consists of the clerk or the clerk's designee and two qualified electors, again appointed by the clerk. And this board tallies the results of all of the absentee ballots in the municipality on election day, and then they announce those results of the absentee ballots. This board is also responsible under the statute for reconciling the list of absentee voters with those voters who cast ballots on election day to ensure that no voter has cast two ballots. Just a quick note on provisional ballots. As a reminder, provisional ballots are issued in two cases in Wisconsin. Most commonly, it's when a registered voter does not have or is not willing to provide proof of identification at the polls. But it may also be if there's an elector who has been issued a valid ID, they register on election day at the polling place, but they're not able or willing to list the number of their ID on the registration application. And that's relevant to the canvass process because those voters can cast their ballot and then they can cure that provisional ballot so it's counted. They can do that by going home and getting the documentation that they need and coming back to the polling place, or they can provide that information to the municipal clerk by 4 p.m. on the Friday following the election. So we do have a requirement in the statutes that the municipal clerk must post the number of outstanding provisional ballots on the internet on election night. And we know that the league and some other organizations will, this is for transparency purposes so that people are not surprised that there are provisional ballots outstanding. And the league and other organizations will actually request the names of those provisional voters so that they can follow up with those voters to see if they need any assistance in getting the documentation that they need for their ballot to count. So the Municipal Board of Canvass must then tally any provisional ballots that have been cured by 4 p.m. on the Friday after the election. And so those ballots, of course, will not be counted in the unofficial election night results. I'm going to take a little detour here into the school district canvass. The school district canvass board consists of the school board clerk and again, two qualified electors of the school district that are appointed by the clerk. The municipal clerk has to deliver the election results for school district contest to the school district clerk by 4 p.m. on the Monday following the election. And then that canvass board has to convene by 9 a.m. on the Tuesday following the election. And their sole job is to tally results of school district contest or referendum. Um, the county canvass, we have section 7.60 that governs county board of canvassers. Similarly, that consists of the county clerk and two electors appointed by the clerk, electors of the county appointed by the clerk. As we know, county clerks are elected on a partisan basis. So the statutes require that at least one of those electors must be affiliated with a political party other than that of the county clerk. Now, separate from the canvass, the county clerk also has the responsibility to post unofficial results transmitted by municipal clerks on election night. This was actually a requirement put in the statutes. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but it was when I was at the state elections agency. So it's still a fairly recent requirement that county clerks need to provide this information on election night, even though they are unofficial results. Um, the municipal clerk, of course, needs to deliver election materials related to county, state, and federal offices to the county clerk by the afternoon after the election, or if they are a central count community, by the second day after the election. Then the county canvass board needs to meet no later than 9 a.m. on the Tuesday following the election, and they canvass the results of federal, state, and county offices. The county then transmits those results for state and federal contests to the Wisconsin Election Commission. The county canvass board, of course, will certify the results for the county offices or county contests. They do not go to the state. The results for state and federal contests need to be transmitted to the WEC by the 8th day after a primary election and by the 11th day after any other election. The state canvass, it's a little bit different animal than in most states that have a Secretary of State that certifies election results. Of course, in Wisconsin, we have the Wisconsin Elections Commission. And the statutes authorize the commission chair or their designee to canvass the results of the state and federal contests. Now, I can tell you based on experience that the work in putting together the canvass results is completed by the staff of the WEC. They collect all of the county canvass reports. They analyze them to make sure that the results make some sense in relation to the number of voters actually voting in those contests. They try to both using different data and spot checks to identify any issues or potential issues that might require further explanation. They can reach out to the counties to get that explanation. They're authorized to require a county canvass board or municipal canvass board to reconvene if necessary to fix any issues with the canvass. And ultimately, the staff will put together a canvass report that is then signed by the commission chair. Interestingly, this is not a task delegated to the commission itself. There was some debate and controversy after the 2020 election, um, with members of the commission who thought that the state canvas should be discussed and debated and approved during a commission meeting, but ultimately the commission chair exercised their authority and signed the canvas report. I've included here deadlines for the state to complete their canvas, and that you can see the dates there. I won't go through all of them, but it varies depending on the type of election and the need for the results to be final. For instance, after a primary, in time to develop and print ballots for the general elections in the spring and the fall. And also, after the general election, in order for actually, after every election, in order for the winners to be seated, and according, of course, for the presidential election, in time for the Electoral College to have the results of Wisconsin's presidential votes. Um, so the Canvas report is different than certification of results, which happens by the issuance of certificates of election to each winning candidate, which are issued by the appropriate election official. So the municipal clerk, school district clerk, county clerk, or WEC will issue certificates of election to each winning candidate. Now, those cannot be issued until after the recount deadline, or if there is a recount, after the completion of any recount. And we have different deadlines for the recount deadline, depending on the office. So those candidates that are within the recount margin have time to decide whether or not there will be a recount. And after that deadline passes, the certificates of election can be issued. I will say in some rare cases, if there is some timeliness issue, for instance, we've had cases where the state legislature wants to seat a member of the legislature after a special election. And there may be a candidate within the recount margin, but the legislature would like to get that person seated. And we at the state would reach out to the losing candidate and ask them if they wanted to document that they would not file a recount petition. And if they did so, we would then issue the certificate of election without waiting for the recount deadline to pass. You can see the recount deadline here is based on the last meeting of the last canvas board that is involved in tabulating the results. So obviously for statewide contests, you have 72 counties, and that recount deadline does not start, that clock does not start ticking until after the last canvas board has submitted their results to the WEC. I have a couple minutes. I wanted to just comment briefly on the two, I think, most significant issues I've seen involving the canvas and tabulation results since I started becoming involved in Wisconsin elections since 2008. And many of you will remember one of them occurred in 2011 when we had a Supreme Court election, hotly contested, a close election, and the results in Waukesha County were, well, the initial results, the unofficial election results, did not include an entire municipality. And this was not known by the public, and it was known by the county clerk. I think if my recollection is correct, for maybe up to 48 hours, was not really announced to the public until the canvas board meeting. And that caused a lot of turmoil. It ultimately led to a statewide recount, a lot of questions about the integrity of the election and the accuracy of voting equipment. We had protests in the office of the Government Accountability Board. And of course, this was during the Act 10 protests and all of that political, hyper-partisan, I would say, political environment. Um, Ultimately, of course, the results, the official results, were upheld after the recount, which was really a testament to all of the work that was done by election officials during the election and the canvass and the recount. But it really did damage, I think, the environment and the trust that the public had. Um, Again, not necessarily because of what happened, but because of the lack of communication. And that's one common theme that we talk about in elections. Being a human process, mistakes are made in in elections. And what we always try to advocate for is for our election officials to be transparent and to be proactive in communicating with the public. The other, I guess, instance I would bring up, probably many of you know about, is what we had occur in the city of Madison. Last year's general election in November, where ballots just were not located. 193 ballots were not located and therefore not counted either on election night or during the canvass. Um, Unfortunately, there were communication gaps, and the city clerk um, did not communicate that those ballots had been located. Some of them were located um, before the county canvas board met, and the county canvas and therefore the state could have included those. Some were located after the county canvas, but of course, that again led to some questions, some mistrust by the voters, questions about the integrity of the election, led to an investigation by the Wisconsin Elections Commission. The city is also facing a lawsuit by some of those voters currently. And so again, I go back to the lessons about communication, transparency, being upfront about what the situation is and what measures are being taken to correct it, um, and implementing those measures when we have the opportunity to still include results by reconvening a canvas board, even if they were not available at the time of the original canvas board meeting. I will say that the city will be providing a report to the Elections Commission in another month or two. Um, by the spring election, the city had already implemented measures to hopefully prevent the situation from reoccurring. The WEC added a few items that it wanted the city to implement, but things like printing the poll books later, closer tracking of absentee ballots, and documenting the tracking of absentee ballots, and some measures leading up to the meeting of the Municipal Board of Canvassers to just ensure that all of the absentee ballots have been located, that we have looked at all of the bins and all of the storage containers where ballots may be hiding, and to make sure that they get to the Municipal Board of Canvas. So I guess that's all I'll say about those two situations and sort of how the requirements of the canvas really can play out in reality and in unfortunately some issues that we have to make sure that we address. So I'll stop there and pass it along to whoever's next.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you sharing all the landscape groundwork for us and then also some details about sometimes when it hasn't gone well so that we can learn from those mistakes. And I totally agree. Transparency and communication is so key to make sure that voters have trust in the process. I am now going to pass it on to Elena. And just a quick reminder, if you have any questions for any of our speakers, please do make sure to use the chat and get those questions, get them in there. Elena, I'm going to pass it over to you.
I get to see if I can share my screen, right?
Mhm.
So I'm going to select that, and then that's my baby. It's not what we're looking for though. Okay. All right. Are you looking at my opening screen?
We see your slides and it's in the correct view.
Yay. Okay. All right. So yeah, that was a great start, Mike, and I'm going to really drive home the fact of communication, transparency, and the fact that this is a very human process. So mistakes are going to be made, and it's really important we understand, how they're going to be dealt with. So thank you for having me. My name again is Elena Healby, and I am the city clerk for the city of Sun Prairie. And I am thrilled to be here because I love talking elections. So when people think about elections, I think most are imagining what happens on election day, right? Voters casting ballots, poll workers helping at the polls, and results showing up online later that night. But what many don't realize is that after the polls close, there is an enormous amount of careful behind the scenes work that takes place to make sure every single ballot is accurately counted and that the results are officially certified. That's where the municipal and county process comes in. So this is the point where clerks like me, along with our my municipal board of canvassers, MBOC, double check, balance, and verify everything that happened during the election. So hopefully by the end of my presentation, I hope you'll have a deeper or a clearer picture of how the numbers you see on election night become certified, official results that truly reflect the will of the voters. So this is the agenda I wanted to go through. We'll start with why the Board of Canvass matters, what happens after Election Day, and why it's such a vital part of Wisconsin's checks and balances. And then I'd like to get into who serves on the board, when and where they meet, and what their work actually looks like in practice. After that, we'll take a look at some of the most common issues that come up during the review, things like math errors, skipped voter numbers, or tabulator jams, and how those are identified and resolved transparently. And then finally, I will connect that work to the last step, reconciliation, which is how clerks confirm that every ballot, voter, and number in the system matches the paper record that we were reviewing. So hopefully by the end, you'll see that these aren't just administrative steps, that they are accountability steps. They're how we can say with confidence that Wisconsin's elections results are both accurate and explainable. So I'm going to start with the foundation, why the Board of Canvass matters. So when the polls close on election night, the counting isn't the end. It's just the beginning of the verification process. So that work starts with the Municipal Board of Canvass, the local team that reviews every number, document, and note from the polling places to make sure that it all adds up. Their job isn't to change votes, it's to verify them. They check the math, confirm signatures, and make sure that the number of voters matches the number of ballots. If something doesn't line up, they don't guess, they find out why. After that comes reconciliation, when those same numbers are double checked in WisVote, the Wisconsin's secure election system. And that's how we confirm that the story on paper matches the data in the system. I like to think of reconciliation as accountability in action, the moment when our paper trail and our data trail shake hands, hopefully. It's not about catching mistakes, it's about confirming what went right. Everything that happens in this phase comes back to three principles: accuracy, the numbers line up; accountability, we can explain them; and trust, the public can believe in them. Together, the canvass and reconciliation turn election night results into verified records the entire community can have confidence in. So let's talk about who's involved and who's on the board of canvass next. So the MBOC, or Municipal Board of Canvass, is the group that takes the first close look at election results. So in a small municipality with one polling place, the election inspectors usually serve as the board. They review the paperwork, check the math, and sign off on results that night. In larger municipalities, any municipality with 2 or more polling places, the board is made up of the municipal clerk and 2 qualified residents appointed by the clerk to serve as neutral reviewers. So everyday neighbors helping to confirm that the results do add up. And then a few guardrails apply. The clerk must live within the municipality and can't be on the ballot. So if a clerk is elected, the board's makeup can change depending on what's on the ballot. So for example, here in Sun Prairie, I am an appointed clerk. So our board includes me, and I have chosen 2 experienced chief inspectors from our municipality that also serve on the board. So the board meets publicly, often in the clerk's office, and the goal is simple: to make sure that the numbers reported on election night still make sense once everything is reviewed. When the board of canvass meets is depending on 2 things: the size of the municipality and whether any provisional ballots were issued on election day. So in a community with only 1 polling place, the board meets publicly on election night, and if needed, it reconvenes by 9 a.m. the following Monday to count any provisional ballots that have been cleared. In larger municipalities with multiple polling places, the board must meet publicly no later than 9 a.m. on the Monday after the election. All of these meetings are open to the public and posted like any other government meeting. It's another built-in safeguard for transparency. But before that meeting happens, the public has to be notified. So every Board of Canvass meeting is publicly noticed, just like all of our other government meetings. That notice is usually included in the Type D notice, which lists polling details and now also tells voters when and where the canvass will take place. So this isn't just paperwork, it's what ensures the canvass is an open public process. Anyone can attend, observe, and watch results being verified before they become official. So now that we know who's on the board, when they meet, and how the public is notified, let's take a look at what happens when they sit down to do their work. At its core, they are responsible for one thing: certifying the official local election results. Their work is the bridge between election night and the official record. It's where the board double checks the math, confirms every ballot is accounted for, and signs off to make sure the results are final. The board doesn't need to meet for every single election. It only needs to meet when there's something specific to that municipality on the ballot, like a local office or a referendum. The other time it must meet is if there is a provisional ballot was issued on election day. That ballot is held aside until the voter provides the missing ID or the missing ID number, and then it's added to the total before certification. So it's the moment when local results are confirmed, documented, and made official. So once the board is ready to meet, there's a specific set of materials that they need to review, and we'll take a look at what those are. So they don't just review one form, they look at a full set of records that tell the story of the election. That includes the inspector statement, the main paper record from each polling place, and for each reporting unit actually. The certificate of rejected absentees, the used absentee envelopes, the poll books, the provisional ballot report, if any were issued, and the tabulator tapes from the voting machines. So each document plays a specific role, and together they form the checks and balances that confirm the accuracy of the results. The Wisconsin Elections Commission provides really clear guidance on how these materials are reviewed, and we will take a look at that next. So WEC provides a step-by-step guide for conducting the Municipal Board of Canvass. It outlines what to review, how to prepare the materials, and what needs to be documented in the record. The guide also explains the roles of the chief inspector and the municipal clerk, when the canvass can legally take place, and how to handle corrections or provisional ballots. So while every community runs its canvas a little differently depending on size and staffing, the standards are the same statewide: accuracy, documentation, and consistency. Whether it's a town of a few hundred or a city of thousands, every canvas follows the same structure that keeps Wisconsin elections secure and trustworthy. So now that we know the framework, let's take a look at what the Board of Canvassers does once it begins its review. So it starts with poll list, the list of every voter who checked in on election day or was written in as an absentee voter. The board compares the number of voters on that list to the number of ballots counted by the tabulator. If those numbers don't match, then the troubleshooting begins right away. If there were provisional ballots, those are processed and added only if the voter provided the missing information by the Friday's 4 p.m. deadline. Those additions are then clearly recorded onto the canvas statement. Next, the board reviews the results tapes from the tabulators, the tally sheets, and any write-in sheets to make sure every total lines up. This is where the inspector statement becomes so valuable. Most of the time, the explanation for any differences is already written in there. Maybe a voter number was skipped, or a ballot jammed, or a provisional ballot was later added. The board also compares all of these materials to the tabular statement prepared by the clerk to ensure consistency. Once every discrepancy has been explained and the math double-checked, the board signs and completes the canvas statement, the official certification of the local results. It's a detailed review, but it's also a learning opportunity. Boards often notice patterns or small issues that maybe can be addressed with clerks and the chief inspectors to improve things for the next election. So now, with even with careful work, small errors do happen, and we will take a look at what those most common errors are and how they're resolved. So even with the best training and careful work, mistakes can happen on election day. And the canvas is designed to find and explain them, not hide them. Some of the most common issues include skipped or duplicate voter numbers. Maybe a poll worker accidentally missed a number or repeated one. The board checks that the total number of voters still matches the number of ballots and notes the correction on the record. Ballot jams or refeeds. A ballot might get caught in the tabulator and run through again when it was already counted. The inspector's statement and the machine tape will show what happened so that the board can confirm that the count is correct. There can be math or transposed numbers. A simple switch between digits, like 43 is recorded as a 34. The board can verify the correct number from the tapes and initial where the correction in their minutes. Sometimes you've got a wrong ballot style issue that happens in your larger municipalities like mine. I have a number of ballot styles, so that can happen. So once in a while, a voter receives the wrong ward's ballot. The error is explained and documented so that the record tells the full story. And then sometimes provisional ballots are added after election day once the voter provides their missing information or provides their ID. And those ballots are going to be logged and clearly marked on the canvas statement. So every fix follows the same rules though. We verify, we document, and we explain. Nothing is quietly changed after the fact. All corrections are discussed in open session, recorded in the minutes, and initialed by the Board of Canvass. So that's what builds the trust, not perfection, but transparency and documentation. Every number can be traced and every change can be explained. Once everything on paper has been verified and certified, the next step moves into the digital side of the process, and that is what we call reconciliation in WisVote. And we'll take a look at how these two pieces connect. Once the Board of Canvass completes their work, the process moves into WisVote, the state's secure election management system. And think of it like the canvas is the paper review while checking the poll lists, ballot counts, and official forms to make sure everything on paper adds up. The reconciliation is the data review, making sure that those same numbers are in WisVote match what's on the paper records. And so the clerks are doing this process. If something doesn't line up exactly, it's not ignored, it's explained. Clerks enter notes directly into WisVote documenting why, whether it's a skipped voter number or a tabulator jam noted on the inspector statement. The election can't be officially closed until every number is balanced or every difference is accounted for with a valid reason. That's the safeguard built into Wisconsin's system. Both the paper trail and the digital trail have to agree. It's one more layer of accountability that turns raw totals into verified results that you can trust. So we'll take a quick look at what the reconciliation process looks like inside WisVote and how those checks come together. The checks start with the inspector statement, entering the numbers from the paper record into WisVote for every reporting unit, even if there were no ballots cast. Then they need to confirm voter participation. They make sure that every voter who voted or registered on election day is correctly marked in the system. Clerks then review and match the details for all absentee ballots, election day registrations, EDRs, provisional ballots, and voter statistics. So each of these areas must line up between the paper and the data in WisVote. If a number doesn't match, then the clerk needs to research it and adds a note explaining why. And we'll take a closer look at exactly what that inspector statement looks like in WisVote versus on paper. So it's filled out at the inspector statement is filled out at each polling place for each reporting unit, records how many voters checked in, how many ballots were issued, and how many votes were counted. After the election, clerks enter those numbers into WisVote and make sure that everything matches up. Just a note for smaller communities report results by reporting units, often 2 or 3 groups of wards combined. Once a municipality reaches 35,000 or more in population, though, we have to report by ward. That's Sun Prairie hit that number. So it's just a matter of how many different reporting units clerks are going to be reconciling at the end. So when the polls close and each polling place wraps up the night by completing their paper statement, we then take those paper statements that you can see on the left there and take those numbers and enter them exactly as they're written into WisVote. If the numbers from the paper record aren't entered correctly here, everything downstream is going to be off. So on the screen here, you can see how these pieces connect. The section of the inspector statement and the WisVote entry system. The voter statistics highlighted in green come straight from that section on the paper form. The bottom 3 numbers shown in blue also transfer directly from the inspector statements. And the key point is that every figure has a source and every mismatch has a documented reason. The process isn't designed to hide differences. It's designed to find them and explain them outright. So sometimes the numbers are perfect and sometimes they're not. There are really only 2 main reasons why the numbers might be off. First, there could be a simple math error or miscount, or something unexpected happened at the polling place that caused a mismatch that can't be fixed, only explained. Clerks use an incident log page to record anything found during reconciliation and attach it to the paper inspector statement that shows we're clarifying the record, not rewriting it. So that brings us then to the final step of tying the paper review and the data checks together through the reconciliation process. So this is what the reconciliation form looks like in WisVote. It's where every part of the election record comes together: the voter statistics, the absentee and provisional ballots, and the numbers from the inspector statements. Reconciliation confirms that what's on paper matches what's in the system and that every ballot and every voter are fully accounted for. If something doesn't line up, the system flags it. Clerks then review the paper records and add a note explaining exactly why the numbers differ. Once everything checks out, each section is marked complete, a visible sign that every part of the election has been verified. From the first ballot cast to the final certification, every step is designed to ensure accuracy, accountability, and trust. And that's what it all comes down to for Wisconsin voters, right? Knowing that every election is carefully verified, fully documented, and worthy of confidence. Everything I've covered from the Board of Canvass to reconciliation comes down to three principles again: accuracy, accountability, and trust. Accuracy means that every ballot, voter, and record has been verified. Accountability means that any irregularity has a clear written explanation, and trust comes from showing our work. By the end of reconciliation, every number has been checked, explained, and confirmed. And that's how Wisconsin clerks and canvassers protect elections: one record, one review, one act of trust at a time. So I want to thank you for spending some time with me and allowing me to speak here. Our elections depend on everyday people, right? Clerks, poll workers, canvassers who take accuracy and accountability seriously. If you take anything away from today, let it be this: that trust is earned through process. Every step you've seen is part of how we prove the integrity of every vote every time. If you ever have any questions about your local elections, please don't hesitate to reach out to your municipal clerk. We are here to help you understand the process and the numbers. It's pretty complicated, and there are a lot of checks and balances. And I will leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Elena. Really appreciate the deep dive into what the municipal canvas looks like.
Do you really?
I mean, I
Kidding.
do. I know I do, and I feel like I speak for most of the people on the call that we all
Yeah.
appreciate it. I'm now going to pass it over to Lisa to share about the county canvas. Oh, Lisa, you're muted.
There, now you can actually hear me. So there's such good explanation that you've already gotten. So I'm glad I made this a little bit shorter than theirs. So I knew we'd be repeating a lot tonight. So we're going to go over what the county does after we get the results from the municipality. But all that really starts in the county clerk's office on election night. So we are already thinking about the canvas that we're going to be having to do when we're getting our information from our clerks on election night. So election night is really crazy in the county clerk's office. We have to receive all of the municipal results by reporting unit or by ward. We are required to post those on our website. A lot of the times we're answering questions, and sometimes we're actually receiving some of those election supplies on election night. We don't always wait till the next day to get them. Just depends on what's going on. There's times when we have seen some nasty weather coming in the next day, and we've stayed late to let our clerks bring their stuff in that night. So it just depends. So once we get those results, we have some requirements that we have to meet on election night. And the municipalities have to get their results to us within 2 hours of them finishing their tabulation. Once we receive it, we have 2 hours to get that up on our websites. And those are state requirements. And one thing I really want to stress is if you're ever looking at those results on election night on our websites, they are unofficial. We have not done our canvas. The municipalities have not finished their canvas. They're unofficial, and it's a requirement that we must meet. So that's why they're up there. One of the things that we also are required to get done on election night is our municipal clerks, if they have any provisional ballots, they are required to enter that information into WisVote. We actually take a list of that and see who has provisional ballots outstanding. We're making sure that we are not missing any when it comes to our Board of Canvass. Municipal clerks are required to post that on their websites. We actually, in our county, actually post the entire county on our website, the number of outstanding, just to make sure everyone knows what's out there. Now, the biggest thing that I push for all my municipal clerks, even though we know that we are getting a lot of stress from the media to get our results up, I'm always telling my municipal clerks that I am not looking for speed. I am looking for accuracy. Take your time and get it right, because it's a whole lot easier to double check it if you have a question than to correct it later. So you've seen some of the screens, the different pictures that Elena had up. We are going to take delivery of all those materials from our municipal clerks the day after the election, or sometimes election night. So most municipalities, the deadline is 4 p.m. The day after the election. Central count municipalities have an extra day, so they can get those to us by 4 p.m. the second day after the election. I have two municipalities in my county that have central count. The majority of their materials I actually have the next day. And what you're seeing there is a checklist. So when we're bringing in the materials, we're actually checking off to make sure we have all the materials to make sure we're ready for our Board of Canvass. So the County Board of Canvassers, it's made up of the county clerk and two qualified electors of the county. And we choose those from lists. So we will get lists from both the Republican and the Democratic Party. If there's at least 3 people on those lists, we must choose from those lists. Not all county clerks get those lists. The majority of us do. We will be getting them soon. They are appointed in even numbered years, or at the end of odd numbered years, for starting in January of next year is their term. It runs for 2 years. As the county clerk, I am on the ballot. If I am unopposed, I can still stay on the county board of canvass. If my race is contested, I cannot, so I'll appoint someone else to fill my shoes. And again, as Mike was saying, we do need to have at least one person that is the opposite party that the county clerk is. So deadlines, the county board of canvass, the deadline for us to begin our canvass is Tuesday at 9 a.m. Many clerks will actually start them early. I usually start mine at 9 a.m. on Monday. And the reason I started on Monday is because it usually takes us 1 day to complete it. And if I complete it on Monday, I can get my 3 days by. And if I have to start a recount, I'm starting on Friday and not on Saturday. I've been in 9 recounts. I'd like to get a head start on those if I can. The Municipal Board of Canvassers, they can start at 9 a.m. on Monday after the election to canvass those last provisional ballots. Most of my municipalities have done it before then. If they happen to start at 9 o'clock on Monday and I've already started the county canvass, we actually bump that municipality to the end so they have time to finish and get that data to us. Again, the school districts, they must start by 9 a.m. on Tuesday after the election. Most of my school districts will start early because they can, but I will warn them if there's provisionals out there so they know that they might want to wait until those provisionals are reconciled or canvassed. So our deadlines to transmit our canvass to the state, no later than 9 a.m. or 9 days after the spring primary, no later than 10 days after the spring election or the partisan primary, and no later than 14 days after the general election. So I'm going to go through our steps that we go through when we do our board of canvass. First thing we do is we make sure all of the items are there. So even though we double check those when they're coming in with their supplies, we go through them again just to make sure we're not missing anything. I will usually do this ahead of time and flag anything that I think is an issue and get a hold of my municipal clerks just to make sure that we have all the materials and everything is taken care of. We're going to compare those voter numbers to the number of votes cast. What you're seeing in front of you is actually a picture from my Rock County website, and it's showing the total number of votes cast for each municipality. We're going to be comparing that by reviewing the poll books. And then we're also going to be comparing the actual results compared to what we received on election night. So election night, again, they're unofficial, which is what we put up on our website. But we do not certify our elections off what's transmitted and what we put on our website on election night. What we're actually reviewing is what is on the tapes that come in from our municipalities. So that's where we are proofing the data for our final canvas. At the polling location on election night, the tapes they'll print out a number of tapes depending what they need. Each municipality is going to print one for themselves, one for the county, and one for each of the school districts that will need them. Those tapes are what we certify the election on. They print prior to any transmissions. So we're not certifying what's on our websites. Again, that's a requirement by the state to get that up on that website on election night. So you can see here, I highlighted the town of Avon, and you can see that those results match. We actually go through every single tape and read them all out amongst everyone. The Board of Canvass is a publicly held meeting. We must notice it just like any other public meeting. We have people who come in and watch. They compare it to watching paint dry because it's such an interesting process. We're actually going to look at write-ins. Our clerks will fill out tally sheets to make sure that there's any registered write-ins or ones that can be counted. This particular one that you're looking at is the write-ins that we had for a county supervisory race. The county supervisor that was in that office got COVID and couldn't get her signature. So we had a race on the ballot with no individuals listed on the ballot. So the write-in actually did win with 42 votes. So we're looking at all those write-ins too to add into the totals. So we're going to review a lot of other documents, which Elena already went over. So the inspector statements, we read those. I read all of the inspector statements and all the incident logs. A lot of times when we are seeing and something doesn't jive, if the number's off, the municipal clerks and their poll workers do a great job on those inspector statements. I get a question and I will look at those and I can tell. They explain it very well what happened to make sure. If I have a question on anything, I am going to reach back out to that municipality to see if they can explain it and find out what happened. We're looking at, like I said, tally sheets. We're looking at the absentee totals. We're looking at the total votes. We're double checking all of that work that they did at the municipal level. We're basically doing it all again. Sometimes I will actually pull this sheet, which is it's a fun place where you can find lots of numbers. So the Election Commission posts out the final municipal absentee ballot report. They pull this at 7:30 every morning when in-person absentee voting starts. They actually start before it, but most people are interested in when in-person absentee starts. And this actually shows how many applications they received, how many ballots were sent, how many were returned, and how many of those of the returned were in person. And that kind of gives us a number to look at. I give this website out to all the media so they don't call me every day to see how many absentee ballots have been issued. It saves a lot of time. So I'm giving it to you so you can do that too. We are going to look at all those provisional reports that we received from the municipalities. We already know how many are outstanding. We got those numbers on election night. We know where they're at. So usually about 4 o'clock on Friday, I'm emailing all my clerks. Do you have any provisionals outstanding? Am I getting more reports from you? So I know ahead of time. There's not a lot of provisional ballots. The most my county's ever had were 18, and that was at the 2020 election. We only had 10 of them where the voter actually came in and brought their ID so their ballot could be counted later. That was the most we've ever had. We don't have a lot. I think partly that's because we have 2 full-time DMVs in our county, so it's easy for someone to go and get their ID on election day. We complete the Canvas statement. We actually load all the data into the state Canvas system. So all of those results of all the elections, that's all loaded into the state Canvas system, which is not the same as WisVote. Once we verify all the data is correct in that system, make any adjustments that we can find that we need. So a provisional ballot that's added in, we do that verification, and all the members of the Board of Canvas, myself and my 2 Canvas board members, we sign off on this. And then our next job is to get this to the state. So we immediately, once we're finished, signed everything off, we send that over to the Wisconsin Election Commission. We email it, and then we actually follow it with a paper trail right behind it in the mail. During our board of canvass, there's quite a few county clerks that do a audit during their canvass or right after it. We do ours right during our board of canvass. We randomly choose 2 polling locations and a couple of races, and we will do a machine audit to verify that the machine's accurately counting the ballots. So your municipal clerks are doing a public test to verify the accuracy of the machines prior to the election. We do one after. And I started doing these in 2018. They're not required. But since 2018, our accuracy of our machines has been 100%. Now, we don't follow the audit for the November election because the state requires an audit for the entire state. And so we follow the state's audit instead of doing it doubling the work. And last year they did an audit about 10% of the reporting units, and they counted and did a hand audit of 300,000 to 400,000 ballots across the state. And they were really, really accurate. And I can tell you that they only found like just a couple, and they were human errors, not the machine. The machines are hyper accurate. Okay, so what if you find an error in the canvas? Well, there's some best practices that our clerks follow. So if they find that they've missed a ballot or they find an error and they know about it prior to the county canvas, then they will give my clerks will call me, say, FYI, we messed up. We're going to open our board of canvas again, which they publish as an open meeting, and they will add those ballots in. They handle it the same way as if they were going to be adding some provisional ballots into their totals to correct that. If it's before, they're going to let me know, and as the county clerk, and I recommend they let WEC know also, because if there's questions, WEC is going to get a call, and we don't want them blindsided. If it happens that the county has finished their canvas and then they notice an error, and the state hasn't certified, the municipality can go back and still recanvass. We just need to let everyone know there's going to be a delay. So, for example, if I happen to be doing my county canvas and they notice something, or we notice an error in the canvas and we need the municipality to go back and redo theirs, we can delay our canvas. We can adjourn for not more than 2 days and get those documents back to the municipality so they can correct their canvas. Then they're going to get it back to us. So there's ways to take care of that are built into our statutes. So if we do miss something, we can get it corrected as long as it's before the state certifies the election. Again, we recommend they contact the county clerk and the election commission to make sure that they're following all the statutes correctly to get that corrected if there is an error. And I made it short and sweet, so I think we're good for questions. So if you need to contact me, I live at the Rock County Clerk's office more than I would like to, maybe. Everyone can find me. Just go to our website. It's co.rock.wi.us, which means come rock with us. I'm going to stop sharing now. There we go.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you. Can we just do a quick round of applause for all of our panelists? They did a fantastic job. We do have a couple questions in the chat. Please feel free to add your questions into the chat as well. If it's all right, I'll just roll into the questions. The first one is related to absentee ballots and tracking the number of absentee ballots that were returned versus the number of absentee ballots counted. And is that something that is part of, Lisa, your county canvas process? You touched on that a little bit. Elena, I would be interested to know if that's something that you look out for as well. And if that's information that you share with the Elections Commission.
So a lot of it's the reconciliation piece that Elena does, but I do look at the total number of ballots that they had issued. I know that it's not going to be 100% accurate as the number that are counted because they could have been rejected. But we do get those inspector statements that every time they reject an absentee ballot, it actually lists rejected and why it's listed on the inspector statements. Those inspector statements can be multiple pages, depending how large the municipality is. So we do look at those and look at that and it's like, does this make sense? Do the numbers make sense to us? We also look at the absentee ballot logs and take a look at those and see, do those make sense? Are there numbers that aren't there that should be? We're looking at those too. There's a lot of review that we're looking at.
Yeah, I don't think it's officially part of the process, the MBOC process either, but it is so easy in WISPO to say, show me how many absentee ballots were returned. And then I look at my absentee ballots counted and those better match. If it's off by one or two, like she said, there's, sometimes rejected absentees. We don't have very many of them. I'd say once we hit 3 or 4, we probably would start panicking and thinking that there is something wrong and we need to look into it. So I would think most clerks and lessons learned by watching neighbors is we're gonna double and triple check now. Those reports are there, those numbers are there. Maybe we hadn't needed to run them, but we're sure running them now just to make sure.
Thank you. And Mike, if you have anything that you want to add to that, please feel free.
No, I don't think so. Thanks.
Okay. The next question is, what happens to provisional ballots that aren't cured?
So all ballots are kept they have to be kept for a certain amount of time. They are never opened and they would be destroyed when that time ends that we have to keep them for, and they're shredded or burned, so they're never opened. But they're secured with all the other ballots.
Thank you. I had a question, and then I forgot the question. So that's not great. So one of the things that came up in the Elections Commission's investigation is that not necessarily all of the inspector statements were present at the Municipal Board of Canvass. And is that something that you would notice as you're going through the process? And would you flag that to go back, or how would you handle a situation like that?
I go through all the documents and I check it off as it's coming in. And if I don't have it, I'm calling my municipality. It's like, I need your inspector statement, and this is the deadline I need it by. So we won't finish our canvass unless we have our inspector statements.
Yeah, I mean, the same would be for us. It's just to be fair though, it's a matter of the size of our municipalities. If I only have, 20 statements that I'm looking for, it's a lot easier to know if 1 or 2 is missing than if I'm looking for 100 statements, but it's definitely something that we're checking for, and they should all be there.
Thank you for that. For a lot of folks who have heard about the county canvass process, I feel like it's been talked about nationally. A lot of the framing has been around it being a ministerial duty, basically where you just have to like sign off. How do you balance it being a ministerial duty, but also having its role in being an important verification process?
So if it's administerial, I'm not sure why it would take me 10 hours to do it. So we go through everything. So the partisan primary is the longest one because there's so many. We read every tape. We read all the inspector statements. Again, it's like people who have come to watch said it's like watching paint dry because it's just reviewing everything over and over. And it's all 3 of us. I usually have one of my extra staff members with me, and we go through everything. We're verifying everything. If it doesn't make sense, we've flagged it. So it's not just administerial. We're reviewing it. It's another check on everything.
Yeah, I would just invite them, come to any of them, and you'll see how we go diving for them now. Lisa, man, I can't imagine airing that. Some Prairie, though, our media center comes and records, so you can watch and see what we're doing. If you're so inclined. Otherwise, they're all open to the public. You can go. You'll probably be leaving early if you go to one of Lisa's.
Fantastic. And then we have another question. It's aimed at the league, but I'm actually going to ask you all. What is the best way to help inform our neighbors about the canvas process and its role in safeguarding our elections? And are there resources that we can share out?
That's a really good question. I'm looking to Lisa to hope because she's usually the one who has all of these things. But it's giving me an idea. That I think at one point people had lots of questions about what happens to absentee ballots, and Lori Statler had actually done a little like flyer on the life of an absentee ballot, and perhaps that's a missing piece that we can create. I don't know of any documents that exist, but that could be a missing piece that maybe some clerk could, pick up and see if we can't help explain it in simple, just in layman's terms.
I agree. I think we need something that does explain it better. But just letting them know that it's not, we're double checking and we're not pencil whipping anything. We're going through the data. For example, we have central count, and sometimes they'll use two different machines, and then they'll have their polling locations. And we're having to add these numbers together. We're adding them to verify that ward to make sure it's accurate. There's so many details that we're going through to make sure. Come to a board of canvas, see what we do.
Thank you for inviting us in, and I'm sure you'll see maybe some more people at the canvas. Just so it's one thing to hear it, it's another thing to experience it and see how that goes. So thank you for that. Mike, you came off mute. Did you want to chime in on this question?
It, you know, it, I'm sure all of us who've been in elections have a certain amount of frustration that you think that you can maybe explain to people, invite them to observe, and sometimes, just nothing is going to nudge them. I think maybe for league members, it's probably unrealistic to expect a lot of people to show up to watch. Maybe league members can, just by communicating that, you have sat in a session like this and the amount of detailed work that goes into it, I don't think we can expect people to take the time to understand each specific step, but just for them to realize that there are many steps and many checks and balances. I got into a pretty heated conversation with one of my relatives after the 2020 election. And I thought, okay, I'm involved in elections. Maybe I can help to calm her nervousness about the election process. And it did not work. I was not that convincing, I guess. But so I'm still looking for the most effective way, but just to maybe try to express to people who are not going to take the time to learn everything that you have some comfort level given relatively more knowledge than other people will have of the process.
I
No,
think
that's really
reminding them that the election results that they see on election night are not official. We are not done verifying. And I think that's the biggest thing to let everyone know is that they're not official till we have the municipal canvas and the county canvas.
That's fantastic. And that's all the questions that we have. If anybody wants to squeak in one last question, please feel free to do so, but I'm not gonna hold us on the Zoom just to hold us on the Zoom. Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to the participants. Thank you to our panelists and our speakers. Really appreciate you all taking the time to walk us through this process. And I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone who attended learned a lot as well. So thank you again for taking time this evening to join us.
Thank you.